And I'm going to apologize for the dog that you hear in the background. Um, I live in a duplex, and my neighbor and my garage butts up to each other, and my neighbor's dog practically lives in the garage. And so you're going to hear him off and on doing this live stream. But I want to give you a review of what we did yesterday and the supplies that we used. So we used fluid paints, okay? And these are the ones that I use. They're from a company called Pro Chemical and Dye, but you can use practically any fluid paint. These are very concentrated, so I like to use these, and they're not that expensive. And I have them in a number of different colors. And this is the color we used yesterday, something that I mixed up several years ago. I hardly ever use my colors straight out of the bottle. And then last night, I did another one using this acrylic from Blick, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let me set these aside, and we're going to take the pieces off the pole that we did yesterday. So this is the piece. There's actually 3 pieces on this pole that we did yesterday. I have one of them stitched into a tube so that it fits on the pole snugly, another one that fits on the pole very loosely, and another one that I put on the pole using rubber bands. So let's take these off and see what they look like. And I hope the audio is good. I had some trouble with my audio this morning when I was testing, and hopefully I got it fixed. So we're going to take this first one off the pole, the one that fits snugly. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. Now let's take off the loose one, and you can see how much looser that is. It just slides right off the pole. Now this one has rubber bands on it. So I'm just going to slide it all the way up to the top. Take it off all in one fell swoop. Rubber bands at all. So I'm going to put this pole to the side. And now let's take a look at the one that fit on the pole snugly. So you can see that since it fit on the pole snugly, there's a lot of variation in color because the paint wasn't able to absorb through all of those folds. So I'm going to take the stitching out, and we'll open that up and take a look at it. And when I stitch these, I use a basting stitch, so it comes out quite easy. Most of the time I can just pull on it, especially on a short piece like this. Okay, so we'll get a better look at this when we give it a press, but this is the one that was snug on the pole, and you can see the pleats that it forms are very tight and thin pleats, so you get this type of pattern. And that's going to be totally different from the one that was very loose on the pole. So you can see you get a much looser pattern with this one. And let's go ahead and take the stitching out of this one. That one pulled out nice and easy. And let's take a look at that one. So you can see the difference in the pattern you get depending on how tight or how loose you stitch your tube. So these tubes are stitched based on the circumference of your pole. And I do have a cheat sheet that I will have listed in the description that gives the circumference of several common size poles. Now this is the one that had rubber bands on it. And if you want to see how I did that, go back and watch yesterday's stream because I did this on camera. I'll just take all of these rubber bands out of the way. And this one is kind of similar to the first one. but it's really kind of in between the two. So I'm going to take the stitching out of this one, and you'll get a better look at it. So like I said, I do a basting stitch on these, and I'm going to show you another way. If you forget to do a basting stitch, I'll show you another way of quickly getting these stitches out. Because you don't want to have to spend a lot of time sitting there and picking all of these stitches out. Okay. So if there are any questions, please go ahead and pop them in the chat for me. Hi, Pat, Patricia. Glad you could make it today. So in case you weren't here yesterday, we dyed these on the pole, and we used acrylic paint, a fluid acrylic paint. So something like Golden Fluid or any other brand's fluid. But I use paint from Pro Chemical and Dye. So, and I usually, this is a little too fluid for my taste. Hi, Sharon. Oh, thank you. So I usually mix up my own. So this is the one with the rubber bands. And Sharon, if you remember that from yesterday. So this is the one with the rubber bands. This is the one that was tight on the pole. And this is the one that was really loose on the pole. So we'll take these aside and press them in just a little bit. And I have another one here that I also did Sunday. But this one, I put the paint on while the fabric was dry. And I normally don't do that because when you do that, the fabric just wicks up that paint. And I don't like it when it doesn't have a lot of variation in color. Like this one is very, very tonal. So this one, the paint went on wet. So you can see the difference. There's hardly any variation of color, whereas the other ones, you kind of get like 3 values all in one. Okay. So we're going to press these in a minute. But also last night after the stream, I took this Blick acrylic paint and I mixed up some. I mixed it with the matte medium. I never know which way to turn these things so you guys can see them. And I mixed it with a little bit of water. And so let's see what this one looks like. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a lot stiffer because the acrylic paint, the Blick paint, is very thick. And even though I tried to thin it down a bit, it was still very thick. And it's a lot. Paint on the fabric is a lot thicker. So this isn't my favorite to do, but it is an option if you don't mind the paint being thicker. Guys, how's the audio? Let me know how the audio is. I had trouble when I was doing my setup this morning and testing. The audio was giving me a lot of feedback. So I hope it's not. See, you can hear how much thicker this is. And this didn't even completely dry it overnight. But it is an option if that's all the type of paint you have and you don't want to go out and spend any more money. So I'm going to leave this since it's not completely dry because I don't want to press it. But I do want to show you a quick way to, Pat, you know me, I don't measure anything. It was probably 1 part paint, and I would say probably maybe 2 parts of matte medium. And then I just added water to try to thin it out a bit. Audio's great, thanks. Okay. The mic is probably hitting against my chest or something. I got a wireless mic coming soon whenever Amazon gets it here, and I won't hopefully have that problem. So I wanted to show you a quick way to get the stitches undone if you didn't use a basting stitch. So what I do is I basically go along here and let me see if I can hold this up to the camera better and use my seam ripper, and about every 8 to 10 stitches and I don't count them. I just eyeball it. I go along and break the thread, and I do that all along the stitching here, because sometimes I forget to do a basting stitch and I don't want to sit and take all of those stitches out. So once I do that, once I broke that thread all along the line of stitching, I can just take this and gently pull it apart. And if I need to, I can go back. And there we go. So that was a real quick way of getting those stitches out. Like I said, this one is not dry. And you can see, I don't know, I'm not that crazy about it. I can see some buildup of paint, like in this area, because the paint was still a little bit too heavy bodied. So let me pull over the iron, and we're going to press these pieces and get a better look at how they turned out. So I got my little press board here, which is quite dirty, but that's okay. And since this is paint, yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, you know me, I'm all about finding easy ways to do things. Since this is paint, I don't want to wet it because I need to heat set it first. And this is cotton fabric, so I'm going to just use my iron on the hottest setting and heat set this first. And then I will use some water to help give it a nice good press. Now, if this was silk fabric, you could actually keep these folds in here until you washed it. So if you want to do like a silk scarf like this, you could. And if you didn't press the folds flat, the folds would stay in until you washed it. I think the only fabric that you can probably permanently set the pleats in like that is a polyester, and it requires a special treatment to actually set those pleats in permanently. So I'm just going to press over this for a few minutes to heat set that paint. So with the dyes, you set it by letting it cure or batch for those 4 hours. But with the paint, you have to heat set it with an iron. Or you can let it cure naturally just by letting it sit for several weeks. So I'm going to just, thank you, Pat. It does, the paint does a really good job, especially if you use the more fluid paints like that. The only thing you really have to be careful is the paints are so fluid sometimes, it would do like this one that was dry. It would just wick all into the fabric and not give you hardly any contrast. Okay, so now that I've pressed this a bit, I'm just going to spray it with some water just so I can get this nice and flat. And I think these look just as well. They look just as good as the dyed pieces. The one thing I do like about working with the paint is the paint is opaque, whereas the dye is transparent. So you get a higher contrast value between the lights and the darks with the paint. And you don't have to deal with all the chemicals or the washing out. So this is great if you don't have a setup where you have access to water. And unlike my previous studio, I don't have an easy access to water. I have a small powder room outside of my studio, but it's just got that typical small sink. So it's a challenge sometimes working with the dyes where I need to rinse things out a lot. So I use a lot of tubs, a lot of kitty litter tubs in buckets to carry water back and forth. Okay, so let me set this one aside and we will compare them all at the end. So this is the one that I did while it was dry. And I did this so I could show you. I almost always start with wet fabric because I like the look of that better. No soda ash. You don't have to treat the fabric at all. And since it's paint, if you don't even want to pre-wash it, you don't have to. But I recommend it because unless you're using what's called prepared for dyes fabrics, there's usually some type of finish on the fabric. And paint will usually stick to almost anything, but I just like to be on the side of caution and pre-wash everything. So you can see there's hardly any light in this. So you've got a darker and a medium tone, very little, just a teeny tiny little bit of light. And I don't know why I've got these. I don't know. So this is the dry one. And let's set this aside. And this is the one that had the rubber bands on it. Oh, no, this isn't rubber bands. The first one was rubber bands. Luckily, I made myself notes on here. So this was, according to this, a loose one, but not, I don't think this, I knew I'd forget, so. So according to my notes, this was the loosest one. So Pat asked me, is there going to be any color fading with washing because of the Pat? That's going to depend on the quality of the paint. If you use like a really inexpensive craft paint that has a lot of binder and very little pigment in it, you're probably going to get some fading. But if you use a high quality paint like these or the Goldens, I'd say you're going to get less. Okay, for some reason I froze up. Okay, guys, hold on a minute. I'm freezing up. Now we're getting feedback. Camera. That one's still frozen up. What is? No sound? No sound? No sound. No sound. Huh. a minute. Just okay. Can you hear me now? So let me know if you can hear me now while I'm at the desk. And for some reason that audio or the video, no, no, you can hear me now? Okay. Is there any feedback? Okay. So hopefully that problem's solved, but I think I still have a problem with the overhead camera because it's frozen. I don't know what to do with that. I'm going to shut it off and shut it back on. Why is that frozen? So I'm going to bring up the supply list. See if I can somehow get this overhead camera from being frozen. So oh, okay. Okay. Finally. Okay, so it looks like it's unfrozen now, and you can hear me with no feedback. Whew. Jeez, this is a challenge every time. Okay. Okay, thanks, Pat. So let's go to the last one. This is the one that fit tightly on the pole. So we'll just give this a good press. And hopefully by next week I'll have my new mic. And if we have, and it wasn't a cheap mic, so we better not have these problems. So I'll just spritz this, give it a good press. Okay. You like the edges, Pat? I usually cut those and tear those off. But you don't have to. Okay. So these are all pressed pretty good. And I'll just put this press board aside. Put my iron away so it doesn't fall off the table. And let's take a look at all of these together. You like this on this side? or your right or my right? Okay, so this is the tightest one. This was the tightest one on the pole. And this was the loosest one on the pole. So you can see the difference between them. This was the one with the rubber bands. Yes, this is the one with the rubber bands. My right, okay. So let's see. Can you see all three of those together? Yes. Okay. And then this was the outlier. Oops, no, there's one more. Oh, wait a minute, there's one more. Oh, I forgot one. Let me bring back the iron. Getting ahead of myself. So I think this is actually the loosest one. So we'll compare them and look at my notes on the side. I knew I'd forget which was which, so I had to make myself a little note on the piece of fabric. So Pat, have you done the paint? I know you've done dye, but have you done paint? You know, Sharon, yesterday you said you hadn't done paint, but you've done rust. This one says loose. So I had tight, loose, looser. So this one says loose. So this would have been the medium loose one. And these are all the same fabric. So this is bleached muslin from Joann's. Supposedly they're high quality muslin. So I think when it's not on sale, it's about $12.99 the last time I bought it. So Pat, do you have any of this paint from Pro Chemical and Dye? I know you have fluid, golden fluids. Okay, let's look at these all together again. So I'm going to put the tight one down first. So this is the tightest one on the pole. And then this one was a little loose. So so this fabric medium, it's just something I bought at Blick. It's not from Pro Chem, but if you have any type of fluid medium, or that's actually a matte medium, you can use it. So it doesn't have to be from Pro Chem. So this is the looser one. So this one was tight. This one here. This one was a little loose. This was a little looser. And this is the rubber band one. So you can see all of those. And then this is the outlier. This is the one that was done while it was dry. So you can get such different looks depending on how tightly you put the fabric on the pole. Whether you do wet or dry, and adding the rubber bands as a resist. So Pat, you weren't here yesterday, but I put the fabric on the pole very without any scrunching, and then I just put multiple rubber bands on it, trying to space them evenly apart, and then I scrunched it, and the rubber bands acted as somewhat of a resist. Yeah, I think they all look nice. Of course, this is my least favorite one, but even that one looks nice. So I really like the different look you get with each of the different pieces. You see a bundle there? Well, Ellen was on yesterday, Ellen episode, and she said I should do some colored pieces also. So we'll see. A lot depends on time. But yeah, that would make a good bundle, wouldn't it? So that's really about it, guys. I hope you like the way these came out. I like them. Like I said, this isn't my least favorite, but it's not a bad piece. It's just my least favorite. As far as my favorite, I don't know. It's hard to tell out of these. I think the tight and the rubber band one looks, the one that's tight and the rubber band, they look very similar. So, and the two loose ones have a really similar look, but you can see the difference. This one has a lot more open area in between the darker areas. So do we have any questions on anything? Anything I didn't answer? I will have that supply list and the circumference of the tubes, different size tubes. I'll put that in the description of the video replay so you can see that. You like the loose one? The loosest one? Is this the one you're talking about, Pat? So I like them all. It just were a different, purpose. I think out of the looser ones, I actually like this one the best. So you like this one, Pat? Great. Well, okay. No, no. So you like this one, Pat? I should put numbers on them. Yeah, they all have possibilities. There's just so many things you can do with them, and they all look good. So. Okay, guys, I'm gonna call that a wrap, and don't forget to check out the replay from yesterday if you missed that. And next week we're going to be doing Itajime Shibori. So thanks, guys. Your birthday is this year. Your birthday's every year. I know when your birthday is close to mine. We don't have to wait for birthdays. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here next week. Like I said, we're going to be doing Itajime Shibori. It's going to be a totally different look from this, and I think I'll be going back to dye because my experience with the Itajime is it doesn't work too well with paint. So bye, guys. I'll see you next week, hopefully.